So I recently got a call from my Rolex AD asking me if I was interested in this two-tone Rolex. I said very politely, no thank you, but two-tone and precious metals are a little too pretty for me. I kind of really am into the tool watches. And so she went on and said, well, since you already have the Rolex Explorer II, what other watch might you be interested in? And that got me thinking. Since I already have the Rolex Explorer II and it's completely different than any other Rolex, what other watch would I want as a tool watch? And then it kind of dawned on me. Is the Rolex Explorer II the last true tool watch from Rolex? Thank you so much for checking out my channel. It means a lot to me. My name is Shane Walls and we're here in my Laguna Beach Fine Art Studio to talk more Rolex and Rolex watches. First off, I want to mention and apologize. I look exhausted. I've just finished photographing Olympic National Park up in Washington State. If you want to see those new images, they're on our website now. But I've just returned from a 15-hour drive and it's about just past 3 o'clock in the morning. I have my coffee, I'm ready to go. This is the only time we have to film this video, so let's get into it. In my mind, the perfect tool watch has to be extremely accurate. It has to be extremely tough and durable, both short-term and long-term. And finally, the main purpose of the watch and design needs to be for functionality, not to look pretty. The Rolex Explorer II is exactly that, as well as being a luxury watch that I can wear to high-end events. Now, as you can see here, I have a different strap on it. I've been playing with a lot of other straps for this watch, and I'll be explaining that in another video, probably coming out here in a week or two. This has been my everyday watch for about just under a year now, and it's getting pretty beat up, and I have no problem with that. But I was thinking about maybe getting a secondary Rolex or secondary watch, spreading out the wear and tear, ensuring that these watches will be in good functioning order for decades to come. Now, looking at the Rolex catalog, it looks to me that they're kind of going the way of more kind of like an AP or more of a jewelry luxury watch brand, and nothing wrong with that at all. Again, I should say this first thing. I would love to have any Rolex watch. If money was an issue, I would love to collect all of them. But since that's not the case, I have to spend my money wisely. And again, I need tool watches that are going to be beat up, not look pretty. So when I was looking for another watch, Rolex is so special because it's Rolex and their movements are incredible. That's why I'm so interested in getting another Rolex. This thing is dead accurate, it's amazing, and all their watches are. And that's why I'm kind of drawn to Rolex. But here, let's go down each one at a time. Let's go down these watches and I'll explain to you, they are still sports watches and theoretically they could all still be used as tool watches, but not true tool watches. And this is what I mean by that. Now, I'm not going to go too much into Rolex movements because all their movements are amazing, extremely accurate, and extremely durable. I'm going to talk more about the aesthetics of the watch and how Rolex allocates their resources towards each watch. The Rolex Explorer II. No thrills except for maybe the orange print and GMT hand. That's the only real design aspect of the Rolex Explorer II. And face it, this is the ugliest watch, maybe, in the Rolex lineup. I have no problem with that. I still think it's a beautiful watch because saying the ugliest watch in Rolex lineup's not saying much. But this is just built for purpose. And I think that's really proven in the way that its 50th anniversary, Rolex for itself does something, well, quote unquote, crazy for their anniversary watches. To my point, for its 50th anniversary, the Rolex Explorer II, Rolex didn't really bother about making it cosmetically more pleasing to the eye, didn't offer it in, precious metals. You only have the white dial or the black dial. That's it. Rolex put all its effort into making it a better tool watch by only upgrading and refining the movement. Besides other tiny little things for design, but nothing as to make it, quote unquote, prettier. They didn't add needless frills like switching the bezel to ceramic to make it look prettier or add a color to it. they kept the tough and durable steel. They're not worried about appearance. They just wanted to beef up this watch with the movement. I think that says a lot about it still being a true tool watch. Moving over to the original Explorer, and I know I'm going to get a bunch of comments that this is a true tool watch, and the argument can be made. Great arguments can be made. It is a great watch. I would love to have one. And I do believe it is a great tool watch up until recently. Recently, they just announced, Rolex did, that now you can get the Rolex, Explorer in two-tone, in gold. And for me, that kind of pushed it out, still a tool watch, but it pushed it a little away from being the ultimate or a true tool watch, because now you can get it in gold. Yes, you can still get it in just the regular stainless, but Rolex, in my mind, allocated special resources and time to make that watch in two-tone gold. Not to either beef up the movement or do something else to push the tool watch side of the Explorer. They're pushing now the jewelry, the pretty side of it. So that, in my mind, is why the Rolex original Explorer is kind of slowly slipping out of the ultimate tool watch. And yes, it's got great history. It's got maybe the best history. Well, that's debatable if it's true, if it really was the top watch to go to the Everest. But nevertheless, that's what kind of I'm going to be getting into on this video with the watches upcoming, is Rolex is going either way, and to push it two-tone or to add gold to make it prettier, again, I think that takes it away, the Explorer, to being a true tool watch. Oh boy, I can already see the comments come rolling in about this. And again, this is my personal opinion. You're entitled to yours, and feel free to leave comments. I'd love to do back and forth with you, but please keep the comments civil and constructive. I don't need any, just you're an idiot kind of stuff. But I would love back and forth, and I might change my mind on your comment. Who knows? We'll see. But on to the next one. And this one actually, I think, is the biggest argument against Rolex tool watches. Are they going more towards jewelry? Is the Milgauss. I think this one, it hasn't been redesigned in a long, long time, but this one kind of sticks more to the true tool watch. The only way it kind of steps out of that realm is the really, really cool lightning bolt hand. That is, again, cool, but the resources could have been maybe used to make it have a little bit longer power reserve or something like that. Or even the green sapphire, which, again, really cool, but it just shows to me or communicates to me that resources were used to make it look pretty more so than serving a purpose. Milgauss, great watch, would love to have it, but that's kind of my thoughts. But I do think, again, great argument can be had that is a true tool watch. But those refined touches with the cool orange lightning bolt and the green sapphire, that maybe could have been moved a little bit to maybe, instead of a smooth bezel, kind of get in a radiant bezel just so you don't see the scratches on it. But again, could be anything. On to the next one. The Air King, kind of the unspoken Rolex watch. It's a cool little watch. But was a true tool watch until recently, when all the hype around it from Rolex was all they were doing was adding a zero. The main thing they were doing was adding a zero next to the 5 to balance the watch. Rolex is putting in the greater effort to make the watches look nice, as opposed to enhancing their tool function. But it does need to be said, because I think the Explorer II, the Milgauss, and the Air King, those are the only watches, I believe, in Rolex's catalog that aren't available in a precious metal. So there's something to be said about that. The Rolex GMT Master. Now this one's kind of self-explanatory. All the new releases of this that Rolex has been doing, it's been changing the color or adding precious metals to it. And the thing with that is, another important thing about being a tool watch, in my mind, it needs to kind of go under the radar a little bit. Again, personal opinion in my mind. And that's one thing the GMT Master does not do in any way, shape, or form. With the precious metals, or the bright blues, the bright greens, it is just a very noticeable watch. And so that's why I discounted it from not being a true tool watch. If Rolex wanted to make the GMT a true tool watch, maybe they tone down those colors and use their resources to, I don't know, maybe even upping the power reserve a little bit, because it's made for pilots. And if you're sitting on a long flight, you're not really moving to charge it, or something along those lines. Is just, again, putting out these bright, bright colors and not really having an option. I don't think they even have a one tone anymore on the bezel, I mean. But just really screaming out, putting on the bright colors, again, takes it out of the tool watch range. The Rolex Yachtmaster. Again, another great argument can be made that this is a true tool watch in the way that it's one of the few watches that does this particular thing with boat racing. So it's very interesting, but we're at it with a bunch of precious metals and bright colored bezels, as well as the majority of Yachtmasters are all precious metals. There's only one available that is stainless steel, and that's the bigger, I think the 44, 45 size one. But again, you can only get it in a bright blue bezel. So kind of misses on the low profile with that bright blue bezel. And this is one of those watches I think Rolex could do a lot to if it really, really wanted to make it a true tool watch, by really maybe even slimming it down a little bit, and also adding a little bit more of the diver properties to it to really make it kind of an all-around watch, an all-around true tool watch. But again, Rolex is going with more precious metals and bright colors. The Rolex Daytona. I know I'm gonna get an argument on this. Why, if it's already the perfect tool watch, why not make it with diamonds on it or in precious metals? And that is a good argument to be had. My side of the coin is it's not quite the perfect tool watch. It's not quite the perfect watch as it stands right now. Rolex is really putting a lot of effort into Daytona, making it look pretty, and they're doing a great job. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful watch. But the Daytona is a chronograph. It's a stopwatch. And instead of Rolex refining the chronograph, it's pushing it more towards, again, precious metals and diamonds. The chronograph on the Daytona, it's still a screw down to keep it waterproof or more water resistance. I believe it's 100 meters. But the start and reset on the chronograph, you have to unscrew to use it. A lot of the other watch brands are matching that 100 meters without the screw tops. So if Rolex was really making it a true tool watch, instead of adding diamonds, and again, there's nothing wrong with this. It's all great. I'm just showing why it's not quite a true tool watch. Instead of Rolex allocating those resources to creating a better water seal, water resistance without the screw on, screw off, they're pushing more towards, or they're moving towards more the fine metal and high-end jewelry side of watches. Nothing wrong with that. It's a beautiful, beautiful watch, and I really do hope to own one day. Okay, here we go. On to the Big Daddy. I know I'm already hearing the arguments for this one about being a true tool watch. The Rolex Submariner and Sea Dweller. Yes, I know. These are always built as, these have been in history, the ultimate, the perfect tool watch. I hear it. And I really believe back in the day, they used to be. Nothing wrong with adding a little bit of glamour to a tool watch. I think the Rolex Explorer II, which I have now, does that beautifully. But the Submariner and Sea Dweller are almost victims of their own success. They're so good and really, dare I say, almost perfect. It is such an iconic, good-looking watch that now Rolex has kept it pretty much unchanged for decades now. And they've just added little bits here and there, but they haven't taken that next step, and I don't think they ever will. They're not moving it forward as a diver. They're keeping it as that iconic Submariner Rolex watch. It's so iconic that even its minor flaws will never be corrected. And it looks to me that Rolex is spending a lot more time, effort, and money towards other watches in its diver collection. Rolex, to me, with the Sea Dweller and Submariner, have already have a perfect watch, pretty much a perfect watch. But now they're really pushing these colors. They're really pushing the precious metals, the bright blue bezel, the bright green bezel. Rolex will never redesign it again to be more functional, more user-friendly to the diver. But back to the Explorer II. You know, I know it's not nearly as iconic. I understand that. But a lot of the Explorers were complaining that the dial was sometimes hard to read. It wasn't as legible as they needed to be. So Rolex took that step forward. Again, I know this is kind of apples and oranges. I understand that. I'm just noting a true tool watch that Rolex went and made the white polar dial to give it with the black hands, to give it a little bit more contrast so it's more legible. That will never happen with the Submariner. That all being said, one day I would love to own a Rolex Submariner. It's a beautiful watch. It's so iconic. It's one of the first divers ever made. Would love to have one. But I wouldn't use it as a tool watch. It would be kind of more of a dressy watch that I take diving every once in a while. Now that can be said for all the watches we've been talking about today. Well, maybe not the dive part. You don't want to take the Milgauss diving. But anyway, these are all great watches and I would love to have them. They're just not true tool watches anymore. Not that there's anything wrong with it. Just for me personally, I want a true tool watch. I depend on my tool watches for my business. And again, I think the Rolex Explorer II does that the best out of any watch. And if you haven't seen my other videos, go back and check them out. I explain why I think this is the ultimate tool watch. It's at home everywhere. So maybe after doing all this research and talking with my Rolex AD, the Rolex might not be my next purchase for a watch. I might have to look elsewhere. I'm looking at maybe the CQ from Glashütte Original. I hope I pronounced that right. Or maybe even another Planet Ocean from Omega. But yeah, if you have any recommendations or comments, please leave them in the comment section. Thank you again so much for watching. Cheers.